ladies and gentlemen, everyone around and in between. We are Debate Sensei. This is the limited preparation edition where we talk about things relevant to limited preparation, competitive debate. We got Tim Seavey from San Diego. Howdy, howdy. I'm
Howdy.
Jared Miller. I am professor of communications, debate coach, and
We're missing our third this evening. Where's our Matt Shapiro Esquire?
it is a therapy convention where he learns all the new techniques and procedures for treating alien abduction survivors.
Okay, well, more power to him. He's doing important work.
Yes, yes, yes,
Doing
yes.
Cthulhu's work, as they say. So it is the holidays, or at least the beginning bits of them, and that's fight season, right? This is prime debate time. There's no octagon bloodier than the Thanksgiving dinner table, and what better time to polish your debate skills? So we got some ground to cover.
Okay. Yeah. So let's start with how do you deal with these people, and then move on to maybe, I don't know, Thanksgiving related topics.
Yeah,
But
I think it's easy to start in on people that your racist uncle just doesn't care for. For 200, Alex. Those, I think, there are just, it feels like, especially when you don't get to visit some family, or if, I mean, you get family that travels in from out of town, and it's a fun time that we live in where like echo chambers just keep getting smaller. And then when people kind of step outside their bubble, and that's where, larger holiday gatherings tend to be the case. It's like, wait, this is just a fact. Like, obviously everyone knows this to be the case. And, we all get to interact with each other's bubbles for a brief window. So I think it's kind of a useful time just to see what, content other people are consuming, what, information they're digesting. So what your first bit of advice, if you had to give any, little pieces of it, what would be your first bit in someone coming into these particularly potentially problematic conversations?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is I think people should read this article by Sean Blanda called "The Other Side Is Not Dumb." It kind of that kind of encapsulates what the approach I think people should have in those situations. In one thing from that is, don't try to win. Just ask questions. If you don't want to debate, just ask questions. All right. Yeah. And so I think one misconception people have about debaters is that they always want to debate. And while that might be true sometimes, I don't know if it's broadly true comparative to the general population. I don't know about you, but I kind of get my fix for debate in debates. You know what I mean? like actual debates kind of do it for me. It feels almost like, somebody who might like to do, like boxing on a competitive level doesn't mean they like going out and just like picking fights with people. Some of them do, but it's not necessarily generally true.
Similarly, I think the people that just actively like to engage in heated debates with people are kind of, I don't know, they kind of suck. Like, I don't like being around those people. Like, all right, if I don't know any good debaters, and I guess I can say that pretty broadly. Like, at the competitive level, I don't think I know any good debaters that also will just like engage people on a whim because they just want to like rip up a topic. Like, if there's something that comes up that's important to them, sure. But I feel like most of the people that I know that, reach a level of competitive success got there by like listening and learning more than just like, let me show you how much I can, tear up this argument. Yeah. So I like that. That's a good first recommendation, is listen. And that's the same one I think that I would give is just like, let's hear where people are coming from. I think there's a useful theory. I want to say it's called social judgment theory, that is in the world of comm. And this is where you can certainly correct me on it. But it's that people have anchors of acceptance. And then it's like of all of their beliefs, there are kind of windows in that, if you want to think of it like a political spectrum, there are windows in which they will accept information. So something that is similar to what they believe, but maybe a little bit different. Can be more extreme, could be less extreme, but pretty close to what they believe, they'd be willing to accept. But then if you are landing with a position that is outside that anchor of acceptance, you're probably only going to actually give what they call the boomerang effect and push people further into their own beliefs. So it's kind of like if you come at someone with a diametrically opposed position to theirs, you are very, very unlikely to persuade them. So if you actually genuinely want to change someone's mind, start with something that's very similar, like find common ground. I think is a very easy beginning place of like, okay, these are things we can both agree on, right? And it just opens the door because it creates more dialogic environment. Now that can certainly be like manipulative if your singular goal is just to like change their mind and not have your own changed. You're probably setting yourself up for failure. But people are really getting tactical and into it, and they want to change someone's mind. That's my normal first recommendation is like find common ground, get really near, like figure out what they believe and get really near to what they believe, but just like an inch closer in the direction that you want to nudge them.
Yeah. I think that's why I always found it possible to just debate any topic. I do believe that there's several people that come across topics that are like, there's no way I could debate this. But being willing to see the common ground, like there's it's not just completely asinine, ridiculous theories that this is built on. It's like, I think there's, usually even the worst theories have some sort of connection to something that's sensible, that's appealing to certain populations, right? For some reason. Otherwise it would just be nonsense. You wouldn't be able to follow it at all. And so finding that is sometimes difficult, but I found the more you practice, the more you're able to do it on a variety of topics.
Yeah. And some of those things I think also is helpful to just kind of keep an open mind and like keep like a sense of humor. Examples being like just those crazy ideas that I think everyone would just, brush off, like, aliens or something. Well, now the news and the government and everyone's like, yeah, it's legit. It's a thing. And now there's enough like real, backable evidence of like, yep, there are things that we don't understand on our planet. And that, if nothing else, is a fun red herring conversation. So if you just need like an escape rope, jump into aliens. There's no, bad direction to jump into. It's all fun. But also like that's a group that's all feels pretty vindicated. Like that one crazy cousin that was talking about aliens every year. Boy, oh boy, do they feel like told you so now.
So what you're talking about is kind of like redirecting. And
sure.
I think that's a really great
red herring, bad example. Yeah.
So, red herring, but it's not that you're creating a fallacy. It's like you're directing a discussion away from like adversarial. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of conspiratorial, and so that might like sate their appetite for but otherwise, just connecting on some level. Other than that, it just makes it fun. Yeah. I love alien topics. You know what I mean? Extraterrestrial. Like those are great.
You're not going to piss anybody off. Like no one's identity is too wrapped up in that. No one's political party sways one way or another based on extraterrestrial existence.
Right. And that's why, like, I gave out that topic to my students. I have like their questions of fact rounds, and one of them is that aliens would not be impressed by us.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, like so, like you could go with like another way of wording an alien topic would be that we should assume that extraterrestrials are hostile. I think that one has it's like like it's still debatable and stuff like that, and so but a very different debate, still generally on the topic of extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I like that one too. I guess then that gets into fun, like anthropology of like, well, a human would approach it like this, and like, okay, but are they going to approach it like a human would, which just gets to be fun. So yeah, redirection, useful tool for sure. I think I've gotten people that ask me from time to time, especially if they're maybe not with a background in the area, but they hear like, oh, you're a debate coach, so like, how do I win debates? And some of the like first answers that I give is like, well, first off, figure out what your goal is. If your goal is to persuade someone to change their mind, that's actually a very different goal than convincing a judge, which is what we actually do in debate. Like you're never going to be on the affirmative and convince the negative of your side. It's not going to happen. That's not the goal of it either. It is to convince the judge that your side is preferable over the other. So it starts with just like knowing your audience and knowing your goal. Like, who is it? I mean, if a bunch of your family's on the fence about something and you're representing one side and another family member is representing the other, okay, maybe that's a more
Right.
similar arena to what you would experience in some kind of academic debate, but that probably isn't the case if like lots of people are weighing in on something. And so if you're just engaging one-on-one, like going in, that's where I then give like the second piece of advice, like listen and figure out where people are, as you're saying before, like asking good questions. But in those circumstances where it's like, okay, you're not going to convince the other person of a different view and you're already locked in, because sometimes that happens where it's just someone really wants to talk about whatever given thing. Like, I cannot believe that they just opened up this policy or something like that. It becomes political or becomes whatever. And in those circumstances, how do you handle feelings while not just like completely tossing out what you believe? Or do you just say, screw it, it's not worth winning, and just listen? Like, how do you handle those circumstances when someone actively wants to argue it?
Okay, so this is the pick your battles piece of advice. So I wonder, I just think about how much it matters to me, what I mean? It and or how much do I care about their opinion? And so like we were talking about the social justice theory, or not social justice, the social judgment theory. And one of the prongs is ego involvement. And so like take your ego out of a lot of these positions, you know what I mean? Like really take stock of how influential you are or how much influence you can like exert in this situation. Close to none. You know what I mean? It's like it's basically nothing. It's like this is a Thanksgiving conversation with somebody else who probably isn't all that influential either, right? They're not going to go out. They don't have any decision-making power. They don't have any sort of influence. It's like, and so what the hell do you care what their position is?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's at one point, this might sound weird, but I started thinking about what if I just imagined that people arguing with me were just barking dogs in my face, right? Like if I just picture them as like I take the language out of it, would I be offended that a dog is barking at me? I'm like, probably not. They're just being a dog. So and so I'm like, and now I apply that back. I'm like, oh, they're just being who they're being. You know what I mean? It's like
they want to shout about something.
Yeah, they just want to yell about something. And it's like, okay, cool. And I go out. Yeah. So like, I don't know. That's one sort of technique that helped me remove my ego from certain topics. It also helped me to realize I'm not an expert on most topics, right? Like I will accept I'm an expert on debate. That's fine. I'm okay doing that. But everyone thinks that makes you an expert on all the topics you debate. I'm like, no, that doesn't really, that's not how that works.
Well, okay. So actually you bring up a good point that I wish maybe you'd elaborate on a little bit more. And that was the article, The Other Side Isn't Dumb. There's a piece to that. I think you've shared that here maybe a year or two ago. That was really valuable. It was like the curve of expertise or something like that, or it's like a graph that represents as you accumulate more knowledge, how confident you become in that knowledge. Maybe you explain that.
That's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger effect. Ooh,
Dunning-Kruger, yes. And so as soon as you start learning something, your confidence in that knowledge, the knowledge that you have, goes well beyond your actual knowledge, right? It's like you think you know more than you know. And then after you find out how dumb you are, then your confidence crashes. All right. But you're still gaining knowledge. So like you are smarter than you were before, but you think that you are stupider. And then slowly you climb out of it and your confidence in your knowledge matches your ability. So yeah, it's a weird sort of thing. I have since found something that is a little exaggerated, that it's a little bit more of a straight line, but the effect is still similar.
Is that in snowboarding?
So yeah.
Where have you found your counterexample to be true, or if it applies here?
Okay. Which one? What?
No, you said that you found in some circumstances that it is actually more linear, that it does not experience that sharp spike.
No, I found I think I came across some TikTok where somebody was sort of dispelling some myths about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and while there is a documented effect, it's not exactly the graph that people say it is. It's just that like people are more confident in their abilities than they really are. So eventually you catch up and it lines up, but it does not start that way.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's a fun one, right? Like as soon as, someone they've got like the 3 or 4 sound bites on a given subject.
Right.
Like those are like the heavy hit. Like those are the things that they're really excited about, and fair, right? Like I think that's partly why like podcasts are so damn popular, because like, I can become like a micro expert on whatever, right? In like 40 minutes, like I can tell you a whole lot about the Farm Bill. Like, so I've got a few things that excite me about it, but I'm not an expert on it, but I can talk about it for 10 minutes.
Yeah. You gotta think about the lives that podcasters lead, right? Mm-hmm. Every single episode, they're talking about something as if they know it, but there's no way they could accumulate knowledge on all of those topics in the amount of time that it takes to make the podcast. Just map it out. Like there's no way that they have enough hours in the day, right? They just have an opinion about things, and maybe they sound confident when they say it. It doesn't really mean a damn thing.
Yeah.
And so,
I do. I appreciate. Most of the shows that I watch are like an expert on X and then the host. And so the host kind of like plays the straight man and just like asks kind of simple questions to gather, details and things about whatever thing that the guest is an expert on. But even still, like even when they are the absolute foremost expert on something, that does not make them immune to bias or sometimes like overreaching, like their expertise. Like maybe they are a neuroscientist and they do a lot of research, but that does not make them a medical doctor, or vice versa, where it's like, okay, this person is a doctor, but that doesn't make them a political scientist. That doesn't make them a sociologist. That doesn't make them an economist. Like they'll still, being a very smart, qualified, capable person, they will oftentimes, like there's so many, like famously, there's so many political quotations that are attributed to Einstein, and people are like, oh yeah, but Einstein said it. Like, yeah, but the dude was a physicist, not a politician. Right. Like he's not really by any stretch like an expert in any, means of human leadership. Like sure, he's a smart dude at physics, but that doesn't mean that like he is an expert in, how people should live their lives or whatever the hell like people attribute to him. So keeping experts in the category in which they're experts, I think is one helpful step to recall and one easy fallacy to step into.
Mm-hmm.
So experts.
Okay, so another strategy, or I guess it's like I don't know if we're going to call it a framework or a way of like focusing your energy or something like that in order to deal with controversial interactions. Focus on the relationship, right? Like that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Like I've been kind of interacting with a few people. I'm like, what is it that is kind of like creating the anxiety when I'm around them, or creating this sort of climate that doesn't seem very, like I'm like, oh, it doesn't seem like they're focused on the relationship, like between the us, you know what I mean? Yeah. And more about sort of exercising their knowledge on something. It seems like a power game that I'm not interested in playing. So if you're just kind of focus on the relationship, it's like, why are we here for Thanksgiving? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so,
well, it's hard when you as a source are wrapped in this long-haired hippie from Long Beach. Like it's some people, just gotta, they see red. Well, I guess they see blue.
Yeah. Like, and I think, man, I don't want to say that like, it's like, oh man, well, like, isn't my life tough or anything? But it is pretty predictable and therefore frustrating how people treat you if your job is to be a debate instructor, right? Where like if you're having a discussion and you show any sort of disagreement, it's like you're just trying to manipulate them with tricks. It's like, all right, well, so I guess I don't know, how do I talk? How do I interact with you then? It's like they equate debate with trickery, whereas it's the exact opposite, right? It's kind of like everyone else is using stupid tricks, and debate is a way of seeing through that and articulating that in order to, get rid of the bad arguments and focus on the good ones,
Sure. Yeah. I think sometimes in the interest, as you're talking about, like just the relationship, sometimes when it is like a manner of finding common ground, it's like picking, subjects and things that are common ground. But other times, just for fun, I like to kind of throw in like a total curveball of a position that someone would really not expect me to hold, or a belief or a value or something that they like they feel like they've kind of got me pegged, like, okay, this is what I know about this. And I'll just throw in like a, complete opposite. Like I'll, just love to run out my hatred of pandas or whatever, because that's part of my like manifesto, or just whatever the given circumstance happens to be. And I think that sometimes is helpful, just to like, oh, hey, look, like a person is a patchwork of beliefs and ideas and thoughts, and not just like a monolith of like, oh, I think sometimes I find those conversations to the more predictable conversations seem to come from like this like false dichotomy of like, oh, well, I've got family from like the Midwest or the South, and they'll be like, oh, well, just living in California, you're believing blah, 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 blah. And they just have such a clear set expectation of like what my beliefs would be, or thoughts or opinions on something. And like, so once in a while, I'll just throw in like a really righty policy, even if I don't necessarily agree with it, just to be like, yep, I'm with you on that. And they're just kind of taken aback for a second. So it's fun just to like acknowledge that people have a variety of opinions, and also acknowledge that in others too. So I like to offer those out, but also like celebrate them sometimes when I find the weirdness in other people. Like that's the cool part.
Oh man, like that reminded me of a scene from The Simpsons where I have no idea what city Marge is in, but she's like walking her dog, and they have doggy bags available for anybody. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is such a progressive city. And then she sees a woman off in the distance. She's like, hey, are your kids vaccinated? And the woman's like, of course. She's like, but not stupid progressive. The reason I thought about that is because, like, it's not a monolith, right? There's like a variety of beliefs that people have, right or left, and so that could come back around to finding common ground, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like using humor.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Another just, I think, last piece that I would want to share on the subject of like the like political dichotomy things. I love to just throw in at like the biggest skeptic grenade that I can, because I feel like no one ever particularly disagrees. Like you can take the middle ground. If it's a either or, you can take the middle ground of like, yeah, I absolutely despise both. Right? If it feels like it's an either or situation, and that can come to politics, but can come to all kinds of things. Like the middle ground oftentimes is totally acceptable, and is a place where you can actually reach common ground as well. Of like, yeah, but isn't this awful terrible? Like, look at how both sides are doing such and such a terrible thing. Like, look at how all of this, bickering that we're having still completely ignores this other bigger issue that we both probably can align on or something.
Like that's actually like some of the biggest debates I'm starting to, I don't know if this sounds like I'm getting really old, but just getting tired of them. Like they're going nowhere, especially like the capitalism, communism, economic debate. Sure. And I know like everyone has like such strong opinions about that. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like that's really doing a damn thing. To be like, I don't see it seems like no matter what economic system you're using, that sort of an ethical obligation to other people is a precursor to both of them. Like it doesn't work unless neither one of them works unless you have some sort of ethical foundation. And it seems like we're just completely ignoring that, and so that's like, so as an illustration, it's like when people ask like what side I'm on, I'm like, man, I'm really kind of fed up with that whole debate. It doesn't seem like it offers a solution or a way forward at all.
Sure. Yeah, I think like it's sometimes fun just having like really wild examples, because then it also almost becomes I guess this is a telling of my own conflict avoidance style of just like, and here's a diversion of just like, oh yeah, you've got the most extreme versions of either of these things. Here's some crazy stuff that comes about. Like, let's talk about like the barter economy, like little micro thing that's popped up in Portland. Or let's go to the absolute abject opposite side, where it's like the most like bleedy maw of capitalism, like Dubai, right? Or something where it's like you have billionaires and you have abject poverty and nothing in between. And like, so this is what happens when like capitalism gets all the steroids, like, and talking through just like what some of those, and so then it becomes like a conversation just like how ridiculous all of this is, instead of like the nitpicky, things that tend to push people's buttons. It just shifts it to be a different, like interesting theoretical conversation sometimes. I think we would be doing everyone a disservice if we didn't talk about some of the most important subjects, and those are the foods served at holidays and the fighting that because that's Like we can all bicker about politics all we want, but when it comes down to mealtime, that's when, the knives come out, literally.
Okay, so there's a few things, but what are essential sides?
Mashed potatoes.
Okay.
I don't call sweet potatoes an essential side. I feel like that is excess. If I had to pick one or the other, mashed potatoes over sweet potatoes in any way, shape, or form, and I'll die on that hill.
Okay. What else? You gotta have something.
Also, yams. Like, what the hell is that? Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yams. You can have
some people fight sweet potatoes versus yams. I think like marginal. Like yes, there is something of a difference, but like you're fighting about second and third place. Like mashed potatoes is the choice.
Stuffing.
Oh.
Yeah, but so one thing is like, okay, I do think that's essential. I don't know. That's just
agreed.
Yeah, but the debate is in the turkey or on the side.
I've heard overwhelming argument to on the side in recent years. However, I don't like the flavor as much when it's made on the side. So the arguments that I've heard are like everyone has said that one, it dries out the bird so much more because all the bread in the stuffing just sucks out all the moisture. So you're like almost guaranteed a very dry turkey. It seems like everyone is obsessed with getting like moist turkey. That's like the goal. So in that case, and then also it is very unlikely. Like it takes too much heat and too much time to really thoroughly cook all of the stuff in the stuffing when it is inside the bird. So you end up with like raw egg or like undercooked sausage and stuff when it is in the bird. Now, I always liked the stuffing from the bird. That always tasted the best for sure. So I don't know, maybe it's just flavored by nostalgia, but I prefer it in the bird, but I know that no one does that anymore. And you can get some decent recipes from doing it on the side.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think you could play with the flavors so much. Yeah, the risk of infection, I think, is just too overwhelming. And not only that, but this parlays into another discussion, which is how to prepare the turkey overall. All right, just in general, like there are so many different ways. Now, some people do the deep fryer.
Oh yeah, I actually have got to say that is my favorite I've had so far.
Oh really?
Yep,
I haven't had it yet.
One time 2 years ago. Holy hell, is it dangerous? So like public service announcement: do not do this inside. Do not do this on grass. Like make sure that you've got a big open space, a fire extinguisher handy, and like an easy up over the top in case there's any weather. So we did it in the snow with an easy up over the top of it outside on a big open dirt patch, and it still was dangerous as hell. Like, and we were super, super careful with it, like with people that had done it before in the giant, like, 40-gallon pot or whatever. And it was still really dangerous, but God, was it so good.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was the best turkey I've ever had was that one. And then also you can then start deep frying a bunch of other stuff because you just got this space. And so it was like, start getting crazy, deep frying all sorts of stuff. And that meal gets way more exciting.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that sort of ancillary benefit. Wow. That's a great sort of additional advantage you don't think about.
Like you got like a super seasoned fondue pot that you can just start throwing whatever in, and that now becomes an extra side.
Okay. Then there's so my way, I'm gonna swear by it, is spatchcocking. So you don't need to have any special equipment, maybe other than some cooking shears. But like the deep frying is like, where the hell am I gonna store that deep fryer all year long? You know what I mean? Like,
and like the propane, because it's not even just the gigantic pot; it's like the stand and the base and the propane tank and stuff for it. Like, it's not a, and then also even just the tools to get it in and out. Those are like specialty for that purpose only. So,
and I think the two biggest reasons that problems happen, or why this fire starts in the first place, is because they put too much oil in. And they don't have a fully thawed turkey.
Yes, your turkey needs to be room temp.
Yeah. Oh,
like
room temperature.
No, like patted dry.
Right.
So like let it out of the fridge and pat dry. I guess I shouldn't necessarily say room temp, but like we let it get. We kept it out of the freezer, so it was fully. We did like a salt brine. I think my brother did like a 2 or 3 day salt brine, just in like the fridge for I don't know, probably 2 days, and then but like had to pat everything super dry. So that is like the critical thing. Is it's any additional moisture, it's the water reacting with the oil. That's what makes explosions.
So it starts boiling immediately, which throws oil out, and then the oil comes in contact with the open flame, from the end.
It's gnarly. It's like the number one cause of 911 calls on Thanksgiving.
Oh man.
So that's the thing. So don't do that. But okay, so spatchcocking, how many Miller Lights should I have in my hand while I'm doing this?
Yeah, you can't. So you actually cut out the spine, and you press the whole turkey flat. You actually break the breastbone, so the whole turkey basically lays flat, and you only have to cook it for like an hour.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, it takes like no time at all.
So which side is down?
Huh? The cut up part. So breast up. And you can have like any sort of treatment that you want to try to get it brown and everything like that. It's like same sort of stuff.
You still put like big pan with like a bunch of like stock and wine and like.
You're not doing stock. No, you're just doing it in a braising thing. You could have some vegetables on it, but you're letting the juices flow out. I actually cover it like with mayonnaise. Because it like creates a really crispy brown sort of skin.
Okay.
So because it's a protein based
fair
condiment.
Yeah, I know like a lot of chefs will use mayo in place of butter or margarine on like quesadillas or like grilled cheese, like anything that needs like a crust coat.
Right.
Like it's you use mayo instead of butter. But we've always done make a compound butter and then like put that under the skin, and that is just like a really disgusting process for like barely any payoff. If I'm being honest, like it doesn't feel like it's all that much better because the surface area of like what you're eating versus how much is covered on the skin, like you get a tiny piece. So, okay, all right, mayo, good to know.
yeah, and so you can do the same thing. You just mix up some herbs in there, and then it just cooks it right on the skin. And so, and because you're not cooking it that long, it doesn't have enough time to get dried out.
Okay. Yeah, I dig that. And also doesn't require like just the sheer number of check-ins and difficulties and things that come along with that over a 6-hour bake or whatever can be a thing. Also just the number of people fighting over like the temperature and length of time, and then a bunch of internet sources say competing things. That's a good source of debate right there.
Yeah.
But the wildest that I've heard recently was a spatchcock plus bacon wrapped. So take a pound of bacon, food processor, put that under the skin, and then another pound of bacon layered like a patchwork over the top. So that becomes like the crust, that becomes like the skin on the turkey. And apparently that was incredible. Like that was the best. Now, I don't know if it's just because it was spatchcock or because bacon is better than turkey, just objectively. But combination of those two come together pretty great. So you got some good options for going in new directions this year.
Well, there you go. I think that's our time. We covered a lot of things debate related for Thanksgiving. We're almost coming to the end of this season, and I wanted to let everyone know or remind anyone who's watching, I'm going to be losing my hair.
Yeah, I was going to say, when are you shaving it off?
On Monday. All right.
Monday. Oh, wow. Man, I wish we could do like an episode with that. Like we could live broadcast it.
Yeah. Well, I am going to be live streaming it. And so you can check out, the SEC charity events channel on YouTube. You could go to St. Baldrick's and find the Santiago Canyon College event, and it will be live streamed there. I even put some notices out on DebateSensei social media. So yeah.
Nice.
All right. Cool. All right, everybody. All right. So that's our episode. We only got a couple left for this, before we go into our winter break. All right. This is Tim and Jared for DebateSensei. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Gobble, gobble.